first time I try. And even if I still can't do it, yeah, you know that I'm gonna stick to it. Yes, it's all about going through it, and I'm gonna tell you why. Whoopsie, whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see, I'm better at this today. Woo! Whoopsie, 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 whoopsies.
I'm a little embarrassed when I look at my drawing compared to this. I'm just not getting anywhere with this. It makes me wanna hide. Aw, don't be embarrassed. Don't hide.
You should have seen mine the first time I tried. It took a lot of whoopsies to look this way.
No one's perfect on their first day. Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay.
It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsie, 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 whoopsies.
Well, what about this? I want to jump rope, but nope, I just can't do it.
Well, not yet. Come on and practice with me. You'll see there's nothing to it.
Whoa! Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see, I'm better at this today. Woo!
It was only a dream, the waves of evil crashing over us. It was only a weak and faithful scream beneath the battlements. I know it's hard, but for long, before it's too dark. Wake up, my love, please don't give up on me. It's hard. Wake up. It was only a dream, the waves of evil crashing over us. It was only a weak and faithful scream beneath the battlements. But I know it's hard, before long, before it's too dark. Wake up, my love, please don't give up on me.
What is up? Oh man. What is up? What is up, you guys? We are back at it again. Another day here at 100 Days of Rootkit. We're going to be continuing our journey, finishing up hopefully JavaScript, so we can continue back to Python. This is going to be an epic day. We're going to see exactly how people go about auto-refreshing their resources, and how convenient it is, especially for making your dynamic sites. Let me go ahead and switch the music here. So let's get into it, shall we? All right. If you don't know, we are Rootkit, a nonprofit organization here in the US of A. Don't go to college. Don't go to any other boot camp. Just come here. Look, you're already here. You're already watching. Perfect. And get certified. All right, get our cert. It's the best for a reason. We can get you a job right after you get certified. No debt, no nothing. All right, it's really that easy. On top of that, if you go over to the blog, we like to give away a lot of things. I know, free exam, well, not free exam, but free learning, and then free merch. We're going bankrupt. All right, we're going bankrupt. If you go over to our blog and click on the week 12 giveaway, you can enter to win. It's completely free. Just click the green button here and then go to and then show that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, following on us on Twitch, etc., etc. You'll get more free entries to this. We're giving away 3 different merch items this round because of a deal that we had on week 11. We are giving away 2 of our t-shirts and a mystery item. What's the mystery item? I don't even know. We're going to pull it together, all right? We're going to pull it together on Sunday. All right, let me see here real quick. Oh, what's up, Wonder Blitz? Thanks for the sub on the YouTubes. If you don't know, there's a link in the description of this video, or if you're watching on Twitch, somewhere down below. We are a charity. So every dollar you donate to us is 100% tax deductible. So get those tax deductions. If you click on that link, you can donate today. Depending on how much you donate, you can unlock certain rewards like our epic stickers, our collab t-shirt, or epic sweater, which I have on right now. And look, it has the Rootkit logo on the back. It is super cool. All donations are being matched during this event, 1 for 1 for the first 10,000 donations. So every time you donate, it's like donating twice as much. And we have pillars along the way, like streaming for 24 hours straight, shaving my head here live on stream, and the goal no one wants to see, so we don't need to get there, is shaving my beard. Right? No one wants to see that. No one, no one, all right, including myself. All right, I will visibly get dumber here on stream. Now, hey, I wasn't lying. We're using Edge now in Bing only for the rest of the 100 Days of Rootkit. All right, we're gonna see how well this does live. All right, live. You should always as a dev be on the cutting edge as much as you can and be testing the newest greatest thing. If you're not, you're now shit tier dev. That is what distinguishes the great from the bad. All right, is how up to date you are. And this goes not just for the dev, but also for the IT industry and anything technology wise. If you are stagnant, then you are trash. All right, and you should just quit while you have been ahead. All right, so let us continue on, shall we, on our journey here. We have been programming, right? We have been programming our little site here. Nothing too crazy. All right, we finally have hooked it up to our API. So this is going to be our realistic Twitter clone here. So let me go ahead and get our setup going. Let's pull up our page. Put this right here. There we go. We got our site going on right now. Do we have an, wait a second. What's going on here? Did I mess something up? Did I not save? Wait a second. Oh, I think something's messing up on. Oh, we're not running our web server. All right, we're not running our Python server. So let's go ahead and start that one up. So I'm going to, in a terminal here, cd over to our APIs, and then I'm going to go ahead and do flask app main run, and we also want to add debug mode, debug There we go. Now if I refresh, there we go. We have our beautiful, beautiful, realistic tweets coming in from our server. So we want to show today a couple things. One, we want to get a box up on here so we can tweet ourselves and show how we can contribute data and have data come back. And then we want to also be hot reloading the site. Now, remember, this is just for showing off the whole stack. I'm not saying do this in a vanilla JavaScript. Please don't, all right? We're showing off the complete full stack application here. This is to show off, again, how all of these things mix together. If you want to make a mobile app, which I know we had some questions about it yesterday, you have to do it this exact same way. You may not be programming in JavaScript per se for the front end, which is the app people download, but you still have to do this exact same setup we have right now. Pretty much everything that you ever have utilized uses this setup, all right? Their API typically is always a REST API endpoint running JSON queryable data. GraphQL is a big alternative right now. We're not going to get into that, but that's the only alternative you'll really see. It's predominantly going to be just REST endpoints serving up data via JSON format. Literally, when I say everything, I mean literally everything you use. So this is very important to know. The front end is just the visuals. This, again, if you want browser support, which, look, I highly recommend if you're going to do anything, you should probably just do it in JavaScript so it's write once works everywhere, because this works in every browser. Every browser is on every single device, all right? So you immediately have support on everything. And then there's ways you can port your application over to like a native mobile application, which is super nice because you don't have to write it multiple times. What a lot of companies do, and still do to this day, is they spend a lot of money basically making different versions of their website compared to their mobile app. Even though they look identical, they're actually completely different, and different teams worked on them. So cut those costs. There's been huge initiatives on it. So if you want, there's also Flutter you can look into. I personally like Flutter, but I haven't been able to fully use it. Flutter is built off of Dart, which is Google's alternative to JavaScript. And they also have write once, work everywhere support. So you write it once here, it will work as a website, as a desktop application for Mac OS and Windows, and for mobile devices. So you write it once here, it works everywhere. This is, again, front end only. So you're making a pretty GUI for people to interact with your services, which will be written in another language like Python, C#, whatever you want to do, and host it on a server somewhere. All right, any questions on that before we chug along? I'm just checking the chats here. I guess also, if you are a Patreon or Discord premium member, I am here in the events chat, so you can go and jump in and ask questions at any time. All right, at any time. You don't have to chat away like the normal plebs. All right. So let us continue here. Let me close these, open this one. All right. So our site, it's great, except we have to click this refresh button every single time someone new tweets. And we don't know if someone new tweets. There's no notifications or indicator that lets us know. It's completely random. It's common practice to have things auto refresh, whether that's on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. As people post new stuff, your page will auto refresh with the latest and greatest content. So we want to be able to do that same thing. Now, this is a lot relatively easier than you would imagine it being, right? Relatively easier than imagine it being. It's effectively you waiting X amount of seconds and then querying the data again, seeing if there's anything new, right? Seeing if there's anything new, or just grabbing all the data all over again and potentially re-rendering it. We're going to do it the most simplistic way possible, which is grabbing all of the data every second or so and then re-rendering it all on the screen. All right, not the most ideal way to do it, but we can do it that way. So we're going to do it that way. It's very simplistic, especially because we're in vanilla JavaScript and I'm already not having fun with it. So let us continue here. Let's go ahead and go to the Bing's AI. Oh God, this is going to be a weird day. And let's see what it can generate for us in regards to how we can go about in JavaScript with automatically querying out to our API. So let's see here. JavaScript auto. I guess technically we can rerun this function. So auto run function every second. Let's see how this does. All right, we're all gonna judge it together. Set interval, perfect. That's actually not too bad. Wow, it's still going. Holy crap. All right, so we can use a set interval function, which is pre-built into this language, to run something for every second. Here's an example. So if this example is supposed to run every second, you can kind of infer a couple things here. Set interval is built into the language. It will automatically be here. We can just type it and start using it. It takes two parameters. All right, it takes one, which is supposed to be the function's name, and second, it's supposed to take a time. You see 1,000 here. You might be confused. Well, it really depends on what you're using. But sometimes you'll just see solid numbers with like 1 or 2 or 3. That will be an entire second. Sometimes you'll see them in the 10,000s, or they'll allow for floating points. It's really kind of random, but effectively this is going to be in milliseconds. So this is 1,000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. So this is going to run once every second. And if we want to see this live, we can go and copy it into our code here and paste it right in. Go to our site, and it's going to be printing to the console once every second. So let's go ahead and do inspect. Oh God, please put it at the bottom. There we go. Inspect. What are these? Identity, your project root folder, visuals. Wow. What? It's synced up with Visual Studio Code. Okay, this is a little reload dev tools. I'm so confused. Okay, I'll look into that later. All right, let's go ahead and refresh this. All right, let's go and, or not refresh, make this bigger. Let's go to the console, and you're gonna see, you're not seeing it printed on new lines. What the console will do is anything that's an exact repeat of itself, it's going to keep it on the same line, but increment this number here. So you can see this number is incrementing once every second. That means running is getting printed once every second over and over and over and over again, which means this solves exactly what we need to do, because we just need to have the user query out automatically to the server and see if there's new data and then re-render it on the screen. For us, we're not seeing if there's new data. We're just going to grab all of the data every single time and then throw it on the screen. So we've already solved that part. Some of you guys might have thought it was going to be very hard and intensive. Not too bad. Here's another example here for recursively calling it. Interesting. 5,000, so 5 seconds. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and start using this. I was reading through to see if there's anything else here. Alright, so let's go and change this a little bit. So instead of my function, we're going to, well, we can run my function once. This will run it immediately as the page loads. After the page loads, we want to rerun my function once every second. And this will never be blocking because this again is a asynchronous function. So it's just going to run and do its own thing. We'll keep it at 1 second right now. We'll probably change it to 5 seconds later because 1 second's a little quick, all right? A little quick. Now, we're gonna run into an error when we first run this, and you'll see here in a second. So let's go ahead and bring up our console here. chill. All right, and let's refresh. Now you're gonna see it works at first, and now we get all these errors. So it worked at first beautifully, and now we're getting these errors. What is happening with these errors? Well, you can see here, in between all these errors, we're actually successfully querying the data from our server over and over and over again. If we read the error here, it says we got a type error, cannot read the property of null. All right, reading clone node. So if we go here on line 15, it cannot read the property of null here, all right, the clone node thing. What does that mean? Well, when something's not found in JavaScript, it will output a null instead, a null value, that there's nothing here. It's absolutely empty. So what's going on is our document get element ID base tweet isn't finding anything. It's not finding anything. And since it's not finding anything, it's returning a null value because it's like, I got nothing for you. All right. And nothing doesn't have a function called clone node attached to it. So this is going to error out right here. Why does this not work? Well, if you remember, we're removing our base tweet after our first run. So this base tweet, this template we're using that we're duplicating and using for everything else, doesn't exist anymore. That's a little bit of an issue because now the auto refresh can't work successfully because it doesn't exist anymore. So we can't get rid of this. So if you see, if we go in, we can just comment it out and refresh. Not that one. And we go ahead and do inspect here. You'll see in the console that it's no longer yelling at us and mad. It is refreshing correctly every single time. Oh my, okay. We do have a bug here because as you can see, it keeps adding the same 3 over and over again. So we need to modify that a little bit. So what we can do here in our function, well, before we do, success. We've had success. We need to address this base tweet eventually because we don't want this base tweet showing up. So there's a couple ways we can go about hiding it, specifically if we utilize CSS. All right, if we utilize CSS, we can potentially hide it. But let's fix this one error here so we don't get a site that's full of crap. So what we can do is we're appending everything here to this tweets item. So at the beginning of our function, let's reset tweets, right? Let's reset tweets to nothing. So set the inner HTML of tweets to absolutely nothing. All right, so we're just giving it a clean sheet every single time, then adding stuff to it. And then when we rerun this function, we're just going to clean it out and then re-add all this stuff to it. Again, this is not a good way of doing it. It is a way of doing it though. So if you see now, all right, our stuff is now showing up here. It's only the 3 and it doesn't go away. As you can see, this is a kind of the buggy behavior of it. If I highlight, it will highlight for a second and then disappear. Why is it doing that? Well, because we highlighted it, but then it deletes everything and then remakes it all. It happens so quickly you don't really notice it, but it is happening and you can see it when you do that highlight. So again, not the best way to do it, but a way to do it. A better way to go about this is utilizing the IDs that we have for every single tweet. You pretty much will skip over any IDs that currently exist and add new items from new IDs that don't exist currently. But we're not going to go into that right now because we're just showing basics right now of all of this. So let us continue. This part is still an issue because we don't want this here. How do we hide it? All right, how do we hide it? Well, CSS is for styling, so maybe CSS has something here in the styling for hiding. So let's go over to our helpful assistant and see if it can help us out with hiding stuff. Let's actually ask more of I wouldn't normally ask this, but let's see if we ask more of a normal person question, what it would end up doing or saying back. I have a HTML element I want to hide. How would I go about doing that? I would not ask this normally, all right, for a search engine, but this is not a search engine, this is a chat bot, so let's see. Alrighty. This will work. This will work. So, if you remember, CSS, we can add CSS to the HTML directly if we add an attribute called style and have style equal to some type of CSS that we put in here. This attribute can be accessed via the JavaScript, because when we get an element like we do right here, we can then use dot notation to access every single attribute that is a part of it. So if we do dot style, we can access the attribute, and after style, we can do dot notation to then access any CSS attribute. The only difference is CSS attributes that are attached to it will be in camel case format, not in the tag format. All right. So we can see here there's something called display. And display it says here could be set to none. And then also it says there's something called visibility, which can be set to hidden. Interesting. So let's go and see how each of these behave and figure out which one we want to utilize. If we go over to our site, we can just test this by going to inspect, making sure we click on the topmost div, which is going to be this one, right? The base tweet. And let's go over to the element style section here, and let's try the first one, which was display, and then none. Interesting. Now this works, but maybe not in the way we want it to work. Oh, that's what it's doing. All right, let's stop, because since these are being generated every second and recloning this, since we changed this to be hidden, these ones are being generated to be hidden also. So let's temporarily stop the auto querying so we can mess around with this without being affected. So if we go over to our JavaScript here, let's go ahead and just comment this out so we don't get affected by it anymore. Refresh. All right, and now let's try this again. Set this to display, and then none. Interesting. That looks like it works. As you can see, it was here and now it's hidden and everything moved up. I don't see anything wrong with that one. That looks pretty good. Let's turn that off for a second and try the other one, which was visibility equals hidden. So let's see what visibility hidden does. Visibility hidden. Alrighty, interesting. So visibility keeps it here, but it's not here, right? It's here, but it's just hidden from view. So you can see it's taking up all of this space still, but it is invisible per se. So this is not what we want. We don't want to use visibility, but we learned a new CSS item here, which may come in handy at another date. Maybe you have like a flashcard game you were making. Visibility would be great because you would have the card, and in the center of the card, you would like hide the answer using visibility. And when you're ready to show the answer, you would then display it. You would then display it by turning visibility back on. So you never know when these might come in handy. So always explore. So we know we want to use display. So let's go ahead and have display by default always equal to none. So our base tweet here will never ever show up. So if we refresh, you'll see none of our tweets show up because it's copying our base tweet here, which has its display equal to none. Now, this is the perfect starting ground for us because all we have to do now is in our JavaScript, when we're auto making these new tweets that we're adding down below, we can simply just modify the CSS from displaying none to displaying something. What is that something? Well, if you don't know, you can simply click here on the none, erase it, and view all of your options. All right. By default, you pretty much just want to go with block. Unless you know what you're doing, then choose one of the other items. All right. But by default, block will be most likely what you need. So we're going to set it to block in our code. So again, refresh, nothing gets displayed because everything is hidden right now. All right. So in here, when we clone our node, that is when we want to then afterwards modify the CSS on it. We can do it right here where we're doing all of our other logic, like adding the text to it. So let's go ahead and make a little comment, say this is going to be for setting the display to block so the clone is visible. Very, very nice. There we go. I was wondering if it'd write it for me, and it did. Look at that, how handy. So again, we pretty much copy this first part because we need to grab that HTML element. Once we've grabbed that HTML element, then we want to access the style attribute that's attached to it, and it always has. No matter if you add it or not yourself, it will always have the style attribute attached. And then in there, we're going to access the display option, and we're going to set that to block. So now if we go to our site here and refresh, you'll see our tweets now show up. And we can turn back on our set interval here so it auto refreshes every second. So now you can see it's auto refreshing every second because I'm highlighting and it's going away. And it looks beautiful. It works great. We have our base template. It's not going away. It's hidden by default. And these ones we just simply make visible. So we are on our way here to making a super epic site. Now the next thing we'd probably want to see is it bring up a brand new tweet without us doing any type of intervention. So let's see that here live in action. We have our using API code. So let's go ahead and jump over to that. Let me open a new terminal here. And if I go ahead and CD into APIs, don't close your server. Just open a new terminal. You need the server to keep or stay alive in order for this to work. So if we go in here and we say, let's make a new tweet here. Oh, it's gonna say the same thing. Let's see, what's a great new tweet here? I found a great new meme currency. Wait, it's called Dogecoin. Invest today. All right, and we're gonna invest. There we go. Not invested. Invest today. There we go. Great new tweet here. So now when we run this, this is going to add data to our server, right? It's going to post this to our server, and our website here is auto refreshing that data. So when we post, you're going to see that it's automatically going to show up here on our site, which is going to be super, super epic and super awesome. So as people use your service around the world and they post, you'll automatically see things show up here on your site. So let's go and run this. Python using API, run it, and you'll see here, once it's done, look at that. It showed up. All right, it showed up. We didn't do anything on our site there. Look at that. We didn't have to refresh. We didn't have to do anything because we're automatically querying out to our server and getting the data over and over again and then displaying it. That's the super powerful thing here that pretty much every single modern application is doing. So this is how you do it. It's not super advanced. It's quite basic and primitive, to be honest, but it works, right? It works. That's the main important thing. There are, again, other ways you can go about doing this, smarter ways you can go about doing this, but when you break it down to its simplest form, this is what's happening, and this 100% works if you can't figure out another way to do it. All right, pretty sure all the front-end tutorials out there will have better examples, especially if you're using a framework like React. There's a lot of pre-built-in stuff for doing stuff like this. Any questions on this before we continue forward? I'm gonna wait a couple more seconds here before we chug along. All right, I don't see any questions, so let us chug on forward, shall we? So one thing that may be a little annoying is our tweets are displaying oldest to newest, right? Oldest to newest. So there's a couple ways you can go about changing this. One, you could modify your server. So your server here, when it queries and gets all of your tweets, it gets them in reverse chronological order. That might be really, really handy. So let's show off that example. Another way you could do this is make it so our for loop goes in reverse. So instead of starting at 0, we would start at the length of the array, and then we would minus, we can just show this. So if we minus our index, we start at the length of the array instead, and then we, would it be length of the array -1? I believe so. The length of the array -1, and we want to keep going until index is less than 0. Less than 1. Is equal to 1. All right, what's the error we're getting here? We're not getting an error. Okay, it must be my logic then. Index is equal to the length of our results. Did this give us an error? No. The length of our results, the length is 4. That would give us an error because unless it automatically decrements. We want to keep going and looping forever until index is equal to 1. Index minus minus. Did I not save? What is going on here? Log. And let's go ahead and just log the index. Let index be the length while index is, greater than 1. Holy crap. All right. We got to do -1 on the length here because it's length of 4. But if we use that as the index, the max is 3. And if this is equal to less than or greater than 0, I think it'd be, that's 4 of them, -1. There we go. All right. So this would be a quick and dirty way for you to reverse it. So now you can see all the newest ones will show up first, and the oldest ones will show up last. So that's one way you can go about doing it. The other way you can go about doing it is using modifying your SQL statements. So I'm going to go ahead and undo all these changes. There we go. And let's go over to our server here. We can modify our SQL statement here so it instead gives us everything in reverse order. So remember, there's a thing called order by. Oh, look at that. Order by automatically generated for me. Order by, and we have a timestamp attached to it. So we can order it by timestamp, and we can choose between ascending or descending format. So descending format is going to be the one we want, which means that it's going to be as time gets larger, or sorry, it stores it pretty much in epoch time. So it has the largest values at the top and then descends to the smaller values below. Yes. I usually just flip-flop between them, I'm gonna be honest, you guys, until I get the one that I want. So as you can see, this was a lot easier for us to do. So now people will get the most up-to-date things first, and we didn't have to modify the JavaScript at all. So that is another way you can go about doing this. Any questions on that? Any questions on that? Because I think the last thing we got here would be making the form and showing how we can make it so people on the website can post to our endpoint and add new tweets. Any questions on that? I don't see any questions, so let's go ahead and chug along here. Like tradition, usually at the very top of our site is, or at the top of the site is where you can post. So let's go ahead and put a little box here at the top where we can post into. But wait, how do you make a box? We never talked about that. Great question. We never talked about it. There are pre-built tags. So if we go over to W3 schools and go over to HTML, there are options here. Oh, I guess too much. Right here for forms. Forms are how you can add boxes to the screen, right? The smaller boxes, the check boxes. So these are going to be called input boxes. The scrolling here, that's kind of nice. I'm not gonna lie. I never really noticed that till now. Like, it has the iPhone mobile device scrolling where like you scroll a little bit and it has the what is it called? The inertia to it, where it like kind of slows down after a second. That's actually pretty neat. Okay, so is that wait, is that just no? That's on, yeah, that's on every single site. Yeah. Okay, I thought it was just because some sites do that by default. They have JavaScript to mess around with their scrolling, but it looks like it's just every single site does that. Sorry, site thing. I got a little distracted. It's just really nice. All right, let's continue on here. Radio buttons, right? Radio buttons, which are these buttons here, where you can only select one item. Check boxes, where you can potentially select multiple items. And then a submit button, right? So those are all the basic form items that you get. There are some more, but we're not going to talk about those. So we want to have basically a input box that we collect some information, and when they submit, then this goes to our server. So let's go about making this, shall we? So in our site here above our tweets, let's go ahead and make another div, and we'll give this class container so it's nicely centering everything else. And inside here, let's just go in and copy this example code and paste. So we got a form. In that form, we have a label and an input, a label and an input. How does this look? Great question. Let's go ahead and load up our site, refresh, and that's how it looks. Additionally, we do have Bootstrap. So we can go to the Bootstrap site and we could look around on their docs here and see how they do forms. So here's form control. So they have some really nice looking boxes here. All we're missing from ours is the built-in CSS. So let's see if we can grab one that we might want to use. You'll see here they actually have more examples than what the W3 had. So this is your select boxes. Then you have your checks and radio buttons, which we already talked about. They have a little bit more variety here going on. And this again is all CSS. So if you want some type of iPhone-like button, where'd that go? I just lost it. If you want an iPhone-like button, there you go. You can do it with CSS. Ranges, which some of you guys might see, like this. This is how you can go about doing it. And a bunch of other stuff. All right, let's go in and go to form control. And let's go in and grab this one. We'll grab this email address section because we don't want a text area. So a text area is another one. That's the resizable big box for lots of text. We're making Twitter clones, so we gotta limit people to like 3 characters. All right, so we're gonna take this normal input box here. So we're gonna copy this first div because this first div is for this input box, and we're gonna go in and steal that and put it inside of our form. Oh, it's already in a form. Wait a second, I didn't copy it. What? Copy, paste. I swear to you, copy. Okay, we're gonna ignore that. We're gonna ignore that and continue on. All right, so let's refresh our site here and see what it looks like. Ooh, nice. Looks a little nicer if you ask me. So in here, we're going to go ahead and modify. So forms can have this thing called a label. So this label is the text we see right here. The labels conveniently can be attached, quote unquote, to the input. So when I click on this label, you'll see that the input box highlights and my cursor actually goes into it. So it's a little bit of extra functionality you get with HTML if you use a label with your input box. So in here, we're going to say tweet something. All right, let's refresh. Now it says tweet something. And here, this is what you call a placeholder. So if I click in here, this placeholder text sits here until I start typing and it goes away. So if you ever want a placeholder, that is a special attribute literally called placeholder, right? Literally called placeholder. So we want to replace this with something else. Say something positive, question mark. There we go. Now it says say something positive. And this is not of type email. So there's a bunch of different types for your inputs that you can check out on the W3 Schools site. We're just going to make this text. Does it really matter? No, not too much, but it's not an email. We're doing text in here. So now someone can go in here and type in a tweet and press enter. And when they press enter, our site reloads, right? So let's do that again. Press enter and our site reloads. So we have a form here working, kind of. We can enter text in here. We can press enter and it does something. What it does, it doesn't do anything right now, but besides reloading the page. So let's kind of change that, shall we? And also, weirdly, it zoomed us out. I'm not quite sure why it did that. Now it's not doing that. It was being a little weird. All right, being a little weird. Any questions with that so far? I know we didn't really talk about forms and inputs and labels. Effectively, when you have stuff in a form, you'll get that automatic behavior where I press enter and it reloads the page. You get that only when you use these forms here. If we get rid of the form and then refresh the page and then press enter, you're gonna see nothing happens. Form is a special tag that has some browser logic built in. So when you do try to submit something or press enter, it will automatically try to do that default logic. If if you don't want that default logic, there are ways in JavaScript to stop it from happening, or you just don't need to use the form tags. Any questions on that? All right, I don't see any questions, so let us chug along. If you do have questions, go ahead and just post them, and I will answer them as we move forward here. So, our form, it's working, kind of, right? Kind of. We want to make it so our form, when they press the enter button, tweets, or in this case, we want to execute some JavaScript. We haven't written any JavaScript for it, so let's first write a new function that we want it to execute, because remember, pretty much everything that happens on the HTML front for the JavaScript, you usually want to put it in a function, and it will just execute that function. So let's make a new function here. All right, this is not going to be right now, it's not going to be an asynchronous function. We're just going to make it a normal function, right? And we're just going to call this submit tweet. It's going to have no params, and for right now, we're just going to log onto the console that a tweet was submitted. So whenever this function launches, it's going to print on the console that a tweet was submitted. Nothing crazy. We're not actually sending stuff to our database right now. We're just building the boilerplate code. So let's go ahead and check it out here. How do we attach it to our form? Great question. Why don't we go and ask Bing that? All right, let's go Bing it. So HTML, or maybe we should, I don't really like, it just feels so weird to me asking it like a normal pleb would. I'm gonna ask it like I would normally. I mean, it basically like dumbed it down. It didn't even go with this. It said, this is a dumb question. This is what you're actually trying to ask. So it searched for this instead. Let's go here. We want HTML form execute a JavaScript function instead. Well, let's just do that. So HTML form execute a JavaScript function, because we want this HTML form to execute our JavaScript function. So let's see how we would go about doing that. Well, there we go. We got our answer. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. So in our answer here, we can see there is a special tag in HTML that we haven't talked about, or sorry, attributes, called onSubmit. There are a lot of these on attributes. It's on something. So if we go in here and just type in on, you're going to see there's a lot of on operations. On abort, blur, can play, on click, on drag, on focus, on error, on ended, on key down, on key press, on key up. These are a lot of functionalities that you can potentially mess with to maybe add game functionality to your website, like the key presses, on the dragging and dropping. All right, there's a lot of stuff you can do here. So when we press enter, our form is effectively being submitted. So we want custom logic to happen when they submit. So we want to do on submit equals, and this will always be equal to a JavaScript function. That's why I was saying, like, everything should always be in a function when you're writing your JavaScript, and then something will happen to it later on. You have to call that function. So we want to call our submit tweet function here. So let's go ahead and put submit tweet inside here. So now when we press enter, submit tweet should be launched. So let's see if that happens. Let's go over to our site here. Let's go ahead and inspect. Can I? Why is this showing on the side? because, oh, it's just barely small enough. Let's go to the console here. Nothing's printing here in the console right now. So let's go ahead and refresh and, oh, we got to submit something. Let's press enter. Look at that. Not exactly what we want, but if you see for a split second, submit tweet shows up right here. Let's do it again and again and again. You're going to see submit tweet starts here for a second, and then the page reloads. The page reloads. Why does the page reload? Great question. You could ask being that, but I'll just tell you the answer right now. The default behavior for your form is to automatically reload the page, right? It will always try to automatically reload the page. You can stop this default behavior utilizing JavaScript, right? So let's go ahead and figure out how we can stop that default behavior by being in it, all right? By being in it. So HTML on submit function, or stop HTML on submit function from reloading page. Let's see what it says. Alrighty. It says here that we can stop the reload. You can prevent an HTML forms on submit function from reloading the page by returning false at the end of the function. Apparently right here. It's a little weird. I thought you would need to put it in the function. We'll test it out and see if it works. This will execute the my function when the form is submitted and prevent the page from reloading. You can replace my function with your own function's name and code. Alternatively, you can use the event.prevent default. This is the one I was looking for specifically. Method to prevent the default form submission behavior. So there's a special function in JavaScript called event.prevent default that you can add to your function right at the beginning, and this will stop the page from reloading. Additionally, you can pass in this event variable to your function. It's a pre-built thing that you can take advantage of. It's not required, as you can see here. It's an optional function or optional variable that you can get by typing in event. You don't even have to type in event. Some people just put an E and it will automatically assign it to this E variable. Or will E work here? Maybe it doesn't work here, but it would work here if we just say E. And then you'll most commonly see E dot prevent default. There we go. What does it say here? This will execute the function, blah, blah. Okay. So let's see this in action. So all we did was modify our on submit here to take the event in. And then on our function, we're just going to call that event E. And at the very beginning, we're going to say prevent default. So we refresh our page here. Let's go ahead and bring up our console, type in something and press enter. Look at that. No more auto reloading. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Now we can go about finishing up our custom logic for tweeting here. So let's get to it, shall we? After the break, because it's about time for us to go on break. We're about at the hour mark. So I'll see you guys in 3 to 5 minutes. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat. We're gonna be right back after a 3 to 5 minute break. Alrighty. We are back. Let us continue our epic journey here. I put a little teaser in the Discord. Alright, so I don't know how many of you guys are in the Discord right now. Put a little teaser. Because with us finishing up this box, we're going to be vulnerable to a very well-known exploit that constantly keeps happening. All right, because devs don't know about it, because they're never taught about it. So we're going to show you guys how we're going to be vulnerable to a cross-site scripting attack, what is a cross-site scripting attack, and how you can perform a cross-site scripting attack. So we talked about earlier about cross-site forgery requests, which is going to be for when you're logged in only. So if you don't have anyone logging into your site, you don't need to worry about it. But if you're taking any type of input at all, you do need to worry about it. All right, you do need to worry about it. We did protect our database from SQL injection attacks, and we did talk about that. We showed how to perform one, and we showed how to protect against them. So our database is safe, but our users potentially are not safe from a cross-site forgery attack. All right, again, all these exploits come from devs being lazy and stupid. All right, mostly lazy. Yeah, mostly lazy. All right, it's super easy to protect from. Very, very easy. Takes like 2 seconds. All right, 2 seconds. But most people aren't going to do that. So we'll show how you can go about protecting from these. Any questions before we chug along? If you do, go and put them in. Let's go ahead and finish up our intro. If you don't know, we are a Rootkit nonprofit organization here in the US of A. Don't go to college. Don't go to any other boot camp. Waste of time, waste of money. All right. Instead, look, you're here right now. You're watching. Congratulations. You've already started your journey in 100 days of Rootkit. Watch all 100 days, or if you want, go over to our GitHub repo and learn everything we have listed there. That's all the things you need to know in order to get our certification and pass our certification exam. Once you have that, you can get a job. It's really that easy, and start making the big bucks. No college, no other boot camp required. On top of all this free epic stuff we're doing, if you go over to the blog, you can enter right now our week 12 giveaway. Super easy. Just go here and then click on the green button. Then you're pretty much entered once you fill out this information, and then you can just show for additional entries. If you show that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, following on Twitch, etc., you can get additional entries. On top of that, there's a link in the description of this video, and if you're on Twitch, somewhere down below, that will take you to this site. We are a charity, so anytime you donate to us, it's tax deductible, baby. All right, avoid your taxes. Donate today. When you donate, you unlock certain rewards like our epic stickers, collab t-shirt, and our epic sweater, which I got on right now. It has the Rootkit logo on the back. Limited edition, only during 100 days of Rootkit. So make sure you snag one before they're all gone. And all donations are matched 1-for-1 for the first 10,000 donations. So every time you donate, it's like you're donating twice as much. Super epic. We have pillars along the way, like streaming for 24 hours straight, shaving my head here live on stream, and the goal for us not to hit this goal is shaving my beard. No one wants to see that, all right? Very scary. So let us continue here with our journey, shall we? I don't see any questions, so we're going to go ahead and chug along. Oh, in the Discord, they're having fun. No, you're attracting 9-year-olds. All right, let's go and continue on here. So let's finish up with our box here. So refresh, we made our input box. We prevented it from auto refreshing our site, and we have it printing to the console every single time. And as you can see, that little bubble there is going up in value every time I press enter, because again, that's the default behavior on the console when the same thing is being printed multiple times. It's really nice, so it doesn't get flooded. So the next thing we'd want to do is figure out, how do we get the data inside this text box? Well, conveniently, when we copied and pasted this code, it has an ID attached to it. We could use the default ID here, but let's make it our own. All right, let's make it our own. Additionally, you'll notice that there's 2 items here labeled the same thing, this for and this ID. We haven't talked about for, but effectively for is an attribute on the label that basically says what that label is for, what box it's for. So when you saw me doing that, clicking on the title here, and it automatically focuses in and lets me type into the box here, that's because the for assignment. So if you want that functionality, set the for assignment here. So we're going to say the ID of this we want to be text or tweet. User or new tweet or input tweet text. Let's just call it that, because I'm trying to make it what do you call it, unique, because I forget what we have up here. Base text. Oh, I guess we could have called it just tweet text. Whatever. We just called it input tweet text. So what we can do now, there are multiple ways to get the input from this form. If we print out the event here, because we haven't really explored this event at all. So if we refresh our page and press enter and explore this event, you'll see this event has a bunch of stuff attached to it that you can go ahead and check out, including this thing called target. Inside of target, this is actually the input box, and even hover over it. From this target, we can get the text that was in the input box. So that is one way you can go about getting it. We're just going to go about getting it the way we know how to get about getting it, finding that item, and then getting the inner text of it. So dot, I don't think this one's actually called inner text. Let's go ahead and try to log this. Log. Oh no, what have I done? And let's go ahead and refresh our page, inspect our element, and bring up our console. There we go. And index is not defined. It would be better if we actually put in the right tag here. Grab the input tweet, text, paste that there, refresh, type something, press enter, and it looks like we get blank. All right, because this isn't the, even though you might think it's inner text, it's not going to be inner text. All data from forums typically will be on a different attribute that's called value. So if we refresh and test this again, you're going to see now we get what we typed in here, output it out to the console. Hi mom, press enter, and we get hi mom printed out. So there's a bunch of ways you can get the input from this. One, again, is through that submit event, which we have assigned to the variable called E that you can explore and utilize. Or you can get it directly from the value attribute attached to it, which is what we're doing right here. So now that we've got the value attribute, we got the tweet. And now the last thing we need to do here is launch that tweet over to our server so it can be added. So let's figure out how do we go about doing that. Let's go ahead and stop printing, or I guess we can just keep printing this tweet, it's fine. We know there's this thing called fetch, right? That will go and fetch data for us, but will it do the reverse? Maybe, maybe not. We could go exploring, but it might also be a good pivot point for you to go Googling this, or in our case, go Bing it. So let's go to Bing and ask it for JavaScript, how to post JSON. So let's see what it comes up with. You could also add in there how to post JSON using fetch, which I think we're going to do here next because I don't want to use the XML HTTP request. Oh, it's going to give us a fetch example. Look at that. How beautiful. All right. So it gave us some example code that we can utilize here. In both examples, you need, so this is the important part. In both examples, you need to set the content type header to application JSON and stringify your JSON data. For fetch, I actually don't think you need to do that. I think there's the JSON value, or maybe you do. I digress. And there was one more thing I want to go over, but can't remember right now. So let's look at this code. They have const URL, so we're going to put our URL right here, and then some data that we want to send it. What data are we sending it? Well, if we go look at our server and our post request, so this is for our get request, and here's our post request. All right, it's looking for some data, post, try. Here we go. It's looking for something called tweet. So some type of item in our JSON called tweet. So we need to send it not key one, but tweet, and then the text attached to it. We can use fetch to do a post request. Now you can see everyone always has the default behavior to get, and get is a really easy thing to do. As you can see here, it's a 2-liner, super simple when we want to go get data. But if you want to perform any of the other HTTP options like post, put, literally option, patch, you're going to have to do some more manual labor here, right? You're going to have to set the method and the headers manually yourself. So what do you mean by the headers? Well, we talked about the headers before. So we bring up inspect here, and let me make this bigger so the CSS goes off the side. We go over to our network and we refresh. You're going to see all this stuff going on. All right, all this stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff that loads for this page. So let's click on one of these, and you're going to see here, these are the headers. This is the response header, and this is our request. With the request, there's no request header here. So basically these items, we have to set these manually ourselves, which includes what type of data we're sending, because by default, the server doesn't know what type of data we're trying to send it. It just knows we're trying to send it potentially something. So there is header information that here called content type, which is for telling you what information you are sending, which we've talked about before. So this I clicked on is a image, and it's labeling it as content type image, but not any type of image. It's a JPEG image. All right. So you got to be very explicit. So through our example here from Bing, which we just refreshed and deleted, can I pull up the history? Well, that is a shame. What does this pin do? Oh, it just makes it bigger. We need to set the content type to application/JSON. All right, that is what it's going to be called. If you don't know what it's supposed to be, you can go Googling it. These are all going to be a part of the HTTP content type, because content type is a HTTP option. So if you Google HTTP content type, because that's a part of the protocol, you'll most likely land on the Mozilla site. And again, we've showed this off before. On here, it will tell you that it uses the Mimi types, or however you end up saying that. I'm going to call it Mimi. So this is defined, I guess, by IANA. And here, if we scroll down, you're going to see what types exist. So if you have an image, all right, you can check out here what all the valid ways of you sending an image is. All right. If we have text, all right, we can say it here. You know, it's going to be text CSV or text HTML. And then if we're doing JSON data, it is application, right? Let's go here and look at the IANA site and see. Control F, JSON. I swear it was application/JSON, or is it just text/JSON? Yeah, right here. Application JSON is what we want. This is a very long list, as you can see, with pretty much every type of file that's out there or data out there that you'd want to send. So we're going to send application/JSON. So let's go back over here to our site. So fetch, if we hover over it, you'll see there's input, which we give it for our request info, which is the URL. And then it can also take this request in it, which is effectively options that we can give it. So that's what we're going to go ahead and make. Let's go ahead and actually just redo this. JavaScript fetch post request, because we know we can use fetch for the post request. So we can get the layout of the optional data here. So I'm going to go in here and just type in fetch, because we're going to use fetch. Still the same, we're going to tell it the URL we want to go to. So HTTP, this one actually right here, our little localhost's tweet endpoint. So let's go ahead and paste that. So we're going to go here, except now we're going to need a second item here. They're just putting it right in line. We're not going to do that. We're going to make a variable here called const, and this is going to be options equal to an empty object, and in here we're going to give it all of the options. Look at that, it auto-filled it. So method post, because we want to do a post method, and then we need to give it some custom headers. So in here we're going to do application JSON, and it's just auto writing everything for me. Oh, and we need to do the body. And we need to do body stringify, which we learned what that was earlier. And inside of here, we need to put a JSON object. Oh, whoops, what is going on here? Close. This needs to be tweet. I'm impressed. All right. Hey, Microsoft's killing it. All right. We're using pretty much the Microsoft tech stack right here. Visual Studio Code made by Microsoft. GitHub owned by Microsoft. GitHub Copilot owned by Microsoft. Bing owned by Microsoft. Edge owned by Microsoft. Hey, maybe it's Microsoft's turn to be on top again. And that's all I'm saying right now. All right, that's all I'm saying right now. All right, I get excited by a lot of new technology, but this, come on, look at the grin on my face. All right, that's pretty neat. Let's review what just happened here. So we can pass options to fetch. So we made a variable here called options. In here, they just straight up made all the options. So you can do either or. I think it looks cleaner like this. So we're just gonna make a variable called options. Why is it const? Because we're never going to change this. We're gonna make this once and that's it, and then pass it on. So that's why we're using const. We need to say what method we want to utilize. So we want to utilize the post method because that's what our server is looking for, that post method. Next, we need our headers, which is telling it what type of data we're sending it. We're going to be sending it JSON data. So we're going to say content type application/JSON. Then next, in the body of our message, we need to put the data, the JSON data. So we have to use JSON stringify in order to format the data correctly in order to be sent over the interwebs. So inside of here, this is where we're going to put our JSON data or a variable or whatever. We're just hard coding inside of here our JSON data, which is going to be, brackets, which is a new JSON object. In here, we have something labeled as tweet, and then the tweet data. This is exactly what we need to send, because if we go back to here, we're looking for them to send us some JSON data, and we want the value of tweet, right? We want the value of tweet, which this is tweet, and this is the value of it. And the value of it is what they entered in, right? Is what they entered in. Next, we need to do fetch, and we need to send this over to the server. So this will send it over to the server. This is an asynchronous function by default, so it's up to you. You can leave it in this state, or you can use await, or an alternative is to do what they have here. So there's a methodology here called .then, .catch, and that .finally that you can utilize in the fetch function. Pretty much what happens is this request is going to be sent. So all the data that you have is going to be sent off to the server. Once it's sent off, then it's going to wait for the response back from the server. Like, did everything go good? Did everything go bad? Like, it's just going to sit there and wait. When it gets a response, if everything went good, it will then go to this then function, which you can then add custom logic for saying, oh, it was successful, or putting a success message on your website, or whatever you want to do. If it went bad and the server returned an error, it will go to catch, right? Just like your try and catch statements, it will go to catch here. Catch will then do some type of error. So maybe you want to bring up an error on the screen, or say it was invalid input, or whatever you want to do. And there's one more option called finally, which will happen no matter what. So if it was successful or it wasn't successful, finally will happen every single time. So let's go ahead and show off us using this. So we're going to do a fetch, and then we're going to perform a .then afterwards. So if everything was successful, why does .then work right here? Because again, remember, you can use semicolons in JavaScript if you want. So this is what is really happening, but JavaScript allows for like weird spacing stuff. So again, this is why I said it looks like a beast in JavaScript. Not a beast in a good way, in a very, very bad way. JavaScript code can look extremely messy, pretty much just natural, right? It just looks like cancer, to be honest. So we're gonna format it like this so it looks a little bit nicer. So we're doing our .then. So if things are successful, it's going to perform this. Let's go ahead and change this. God damn. Let's change it to this. Let's not return anything. We do need .json right here. That's going to return a promise. We have to await. No, we'll see if this one works like this. Yeah, do you have cancer yet? I hope you do, because I do. Pretty much, this right here is a function. Believe it or not, it's a function. It's a very quick way of making a function. By function, I mean literally like how we made this function. Yeah, this is a function right here. It's just a shorthand version of doing a function. Just copy and paste this for now for mine. Effectively, it means this variable response is being sent inside of the function. So it's the equivalent of us saying E is going to be sent to this function, and inside of these curly brackets is the function, is the code that runs in our function. So we're going to print to the console. And then we can do a dot catch here, which is for our errors. Just let it write all the code here. So you can see this is the exact same layout as this, because this is another function. These are going to be lambda functions. That's going to be the proper term. We didn't talk about lambda functions in Python. Don't really worry about it too much. I don't think it's on the required item. Well, maybe it is for level 1, but not for level 2. You just need to make the application. But you should learn about lambda functions for Python. Maybe we'll go over it before the end, after we go over threading. So here we have our error, and this is just going to print out the error on the screen if there is an error. So this will only happen if there's an error. This will happen if it's always successful. So let's go ahead and save this and see if it even works. Where is our page? Here it is. Let's go and refresh. And does this work? Question mark. We got the console here. Let's press enter and see if it breaks. Look at that. It looks like it worked. We don't have the auto reloading code going on right now. So let's go ahead and change it so now our page is auto reloading. Let's refresh. Does it work? Wow, look at that. We have our site now fully functioning. A complete Twitter clone, effectively. Because now we have this box where we can type stuff into it. We can press enter and it will tweet it out. And when we tweet, it will, you'll see it automatically shows up here in our feed because we're querying the database, well, the API, every single second. So we have our pretty much full-blown application here, which is super, super awesome. To an extent. All right, to an extent. Because the extent here is now we're currently exploitable to cross-site scripting attacks. Any questions before we talk about those? All right, any questions before we talk about those? Actually, we're not currently exploitable. We'll make ourselves exploitable and then we'll talk about the cross site scripting attack. I'm gonna wait another second or two here for any questions before we get into the cross-site scripting attack. And what is it? How do you avoid it? How do you perform it? This is good to note because our upcoming hackathon, which you can win cash prizes for, there will be cross-site scripting events in it. So you'll have to perform cross-site scripting in order to successfully pass and get the flag. Is sending an API every second the only way? No. This is a rough and dirty way of doing it. I don't recommend it. I also don't recommend you programming in vanilla JavaScript. We're showing off vanilla JavaScript right now, but it's best if you're using JavaScript, use a framework like React, Vue, etc. And they have stuff pre-built in for pretty much querying out. To a certain extent, yeah, you're going to have to query out to the API, and effectively like do it every couple seconds or so. The only like workaround, which you guys can look into this if you want, I'm not going to show it off, is you can set up like a messaging system where effectively you set up a WebSocket to your server, and your server will just dish out messages to you periodically whenever something new comes up or gets posted that it wants to share with you. That is a way you can do it. That is kind of less intensive, because all you do is you just keep an open connection where nothing really happens in it. And then every once in a while data will be sent to you from the server. This way is quote unquote like more intensive, because you have to go out to the server like every second and ping. Most services do something like this, but they're going to be doing it every like 5 seconds, maybe even longer, maybe every 10 seconds. And then you always have the option of like scrolling up to refresh. That is forcefully you redoing this effectively. It's effectively you doing like the refresh button. There's lots of ways you can go into optimizing it. You can spend a lot of time optimizing it. I would highly recommend you either one, use a library that someone's already wrote all the code to kind of flush this out, or follow someone's guide on how to do it in a more effective manner, or just do it dirty like this. All right, worst case scenarios here, because think about it, this is only quote unquote bad for two major reasons. One, if your users don't have a lot of internet speed, this could potentially bog it down, right? This could potentially bog it down. So pretty much you might not be making, you know, Facebook for or Twitter for third world countries anytime soon, all right? Because they might not be able to afford all this bandwidth that's going on. Now, it's not a lot of bandwidth, but it is a lot of bandwidth. The second thing is cost. Cost might not be a thing on your mind when you're first getting into development, but every time you query out to your server, even if the server is your home computer or a computer that you have, maybe you're not even hosting it on any platform, it still takes electricity to run that, and it's still, you have to still have it up and running, and it's cost. And then if your computer is computing more because it's getting these messages or it's having to respond, that racks up costs because you're using more electricity, especially if you have potentially, let's say, 1,000 people, 10,000 people all on your server at the same time pinging out every second. It's going to be a lot, right? It's going to be a lot. So you might want to do some optimization. Now, again, that's not bad. All right, it's not bad. If you're okay with that, then okay. You're okay with that. Your service works. Because again, like we talked about, all that users care about at the end of the day is that your stuff works. They don't care how you did it or how optimized it is. As long as it works and it's not slow, they don't care. So make your bag, right? Make your bag. Cross-site scripting. Let us get into that. So right now we actually are slightly protected, so let's go and change that, and let's set these to inner HTML. All right, so we're going to set this to inner HTML, so our cross-site scripting attack is going to be easier to perform. We will see absolutely nothing visually different here when we refresh and see our site. Nothing is different here, right? The only difference is that these are now set to inner HTML. So when we're putting the text in here, it's going into the inner HTML section. A cross-site scripting exploit can potentially be very dangerous if you're doing something like this on your site, where we're allowing raw user input to go into our site and be potentially blown up and auto-rendered. Right, auto-rendered. What do I mean by that? Well, this is how I can exploit someone that visits your website. So let's bring up cross-site scripting and see. So it's a way you can inject malicious scripts into a website and basically have every single person potentially that visits your website auto-execute those malicious scripts and get exploited. So those scripts that are malicious can vary on how malicious it is. Maybe it's just grabbing IP addresses. Maybe it's grabbing cookies. Maybe it's grabbing, screenshots. I don't know. It could be potentially very, very malicious. The thing is, it's pretty much impossible to really know you have one, unless you're really monitoring for it. But you never have to worry about getting one if you just write your code correctly the first time. All right. So our site is currently exploitable. How is it exploitable? Well, let's show you. You can test if something is exploitable if you enter in HTML code. Let's say an H1 tag and we say hi. We know H1 tags by default should be bolded and big, right? Bolded and big. So if I press enter right now, this is rendering our HTML. This is rendering our HTML. A site should not be doing this by default. This is extremely dangerous. This is how you know a site is exploitable to a cross-site scripting attack. If we had this program correctly, which we did the first time, and refresh, this is what you should see. All right, you should see this, not the actual H1 tag being rendered. So that's the first way to tell if a site is cross-site scriptable. If you see this, this means the tags are being rendered. You've learned a lot of tags recently. You learned the style tag for setting CSS, but you also learned the script tag. And that's useful for running, that's right, JavaScript. So if we use the script tags, we know this is going to be rendered out. So if we do script, we can do a simple JavaScript thing like alert, which will bring up the alert box. So if we press enter here, there we go. And if we refresh, we should see our, okay, did I type that in wrong? Does it want the script? And we need, bring that. Do I need a semicolon here? Press enter. Why is it not doing it? Well, this is a big fail, right? It should be, we did refresh. This is doing inner HTML. Is it not an inner HTML? Is it? Or is the browser doing something to help me? Okay, regardless, let's go ahead and move on with what I was going to say. Effectively, right now, you can execute... does it even show? Open this. God, this stupid... Hold on, we got to stop the auto refresh because it's just messing up everything right now. We want it to go once. Inspect. Let's open up the block quote, p tag. Here we go. So you can see that our script is here and it says alert ASDF. This, when it actually executes, will bring up, as we saw earlier, it will bring up that alert box. So we can actually see it here in our JavaScript. If we do alert and then say it's like this and refresh, you'll see this alert box will come up. That's the second step. So first do like an H1 tag and see if the H1 tag works, then try the try doing the script tags and put in an alert box. If the alert box shows up, that means this is cross-site scriptable, which means that you can now write valid JavaScript and any person that visits this website will now execute your JavaScript code. You can make this JavaScript code that you just learned how to write query out to a server you have and send it some data. All right. So now you know how to send data back to your server. You also know how to get items on people's screens. So maybe you want to get someone's email address and send it back, or their IP address. There's also a bunch of other stuff that we didn't talk about in regards to accessing cookies and storage, and you could grab those items and potentially send them back to your server, effectively hijacking a lot of someone's credentials or all of their credentials. This is even worse if there's a known browser exploit. If there's a known browser exploit, they could potentially be accessing your web camera, your microphone, jumping to your different tabs. If you have your email open and they can jump tabs, they can now steal your email credentials, look through your email, etc., etc. It only gets worse and worse and worse if you pair it with other known browser exploits, right? So it can be potentially just very minor or very, very major. So that's what a cross-site scripting attack is. I wish my example here worked. This is, again, this isn't just for JavaScript. This works for any, what do you call it? So here's a cookie grabbing example. This is for potentially your PHP code, your Python code, because I think this is JSP, but this is also a format for one of the Python code stuff. I'm trying to see if it will. So this is showing the scripts example that I showed off earlier. So if you use the scripts tag, you can put some script code in here. I'm just trying to see if it will also give me the exploitable. Unless the browser is protecting against it, I swear the example I have usually works. Let's see here. P tag element value. See, see this inner HTML that we just did is a bad way and a known cross-site. Just don't use effectively don't use inner HTML, all right? In general, stay away from it. Don't use it unless you know that you're not touching any user-generated data at all. Then you can use it. But if you are touching user-generated data, don't use inner HTML. That's pretty much the main way, one of the biggest ways you can get exploitable, right? You can do cross-site scripting or be exploitable via a cross-site scripting attack. It's gonna really annoy me because I wanted this to work. I swear it works because their example here is literally exactly what we have. But whatever. Whatever. I digress. Any questions on that? Any questions on that? Well, like load up Firefox or something. Can we do something else like a console log? Script. Ending script. Console.log. You got pwned. Bring up our console here, press enter. That doesn't look like it's working. Whatever, I'm kind of salty right now that this doesn't work because it should work. But again, these are very known and popular exploits. So the people that make the browsers are always trying to protect users, right? That's why, again, Chrome is one of the best ones out there. There's a lot of security features built into it. Yeah, we're using Edge, but Edge is using Chromium. So it's Chrome, right? So all the features, security features that Google builds in, Edge gets it automatically, right? Any questions on the code we went over, the cross-site scripting attacks, anything like that? Let me change the code here back to the safe version. Inner text. There we go. Now we're all nice and safe. Any questions at all? That's pretty much all we have planned here for today for JavaScript. Okay, tomorrow's going to be a hybrid day. Tomorrow we're going to spend the first little bit just finishing up JavaScript. What I mean by that, we'll talk about a lot of the frameworks, what's popular, pros and cons of the frameworks, and then we're going to shift gears back to Python. Right? We're going to shift gears back to Python. And we're going to make our first multi-threaded and then multi-processed application in Python. Any questions on that? All right, sweet. If there are no questions, we're going to go ahead and call it good. If you guys do have questions after the fact, please go to the 100 Days of Rootkit text channel in the Discord and ask your questions. Ask your questions. And that's all I got for you guys today. So I'll see you guys tomorrow on the next one.